Um, anyway, so this week you found out is he your oldest son?
No.
He's a younger, he's a middle child. Where is he?
Baby. Yeah.
He's the baby. Oh my God. Is having, drug abuse issues.
Yeah.
And it's been, probably for whatever reason, and it's been very hard on you, and I can't even imagine.
He's willing to get help, but I don't know that he's really hit rock bottom. I think he hit rock because he thought he was going to die, but I don't know that.
Was that a suicide attempt? Have they confirmed or denied that? No, it wasn't. Okay.
It was a combination of cocaine, LSD, and mushrooms.
Okay. And it was, this is the hard part about it, is it's when someone is a regular user, like a daily, I function with it, they're such an expert at quantities, amounts, totals. They know themselves. They know how they work.
Oh.
They know it's like clockwork. And so the likelihood that someone who's addicted is going to overdose is so slim to very small, unless they're committing suicide. They know.
This is the LSD that sent him on the trip.
Yeah, so he must have been in a bad state of mind, and it just magnified it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That part he recognizes.
Yeah, well, the hard part, too, is when if he's not ready, he's not going to do it. It's like when someone comes to me with anorexia, when they're not ready, they're not going to do anything about it.
But
they'll pick and choose what they want to listen to,
I feel like I can see myself in him to the point where I came to you and I've had enough of the diet stuff, but yet I'm not fully, he's had enough of the drugs and the double light, but I don't think he recognizes, I think he never wants to do it again, just like I never want to go back on a diet, but I think the totally surrendering to it.
Yeah, that means he's not done. That means he still needs it and wants it and intends to use.
But he says he doesn't want it.
Well, you know what? It's really not. I think what I would understand, at least as the mom in this, which is not easy, is he might be doing things to make you, to put you at ease. He cares about you. He doesn't want to feel like a failure in relation to his family and to
his wife.
And to his wife. Yeah. And so someone who is not ready to surrender what they're doing, if they're not truthfully ready, I remember doing this. I'd come out to my parents. I think I have an eating disorder. And even the therapist, it was like, I see this in everybody I work with. I'm going to give up what I want to give up, and I'm not giving up what I don't. So you can think that I'm going to be better, and I can tell you that I'm better. Like, I'm not puking the food up anymore, but I know I'm going to try to fix this fear of my weight a different way. So I'm going to go exercise, and I'm going to do it in a way that you're going to think I'm healthy. So because I wasn't subconsciously or internally really willing to open that up, that feeling of death, until I was suicidal, and no one can bring you to that but the person. And so,
but all the doctors, like everybody that I've spoken to, has said most people that fully recover, they have lost substantial, they've lost either their job or
yes, correct. I would agree with you. That's when someone comes to me, it's same. It's like, you got to suffer some more. You need to probably diet again. You need to go in and you need to gain even more weight. It's the same thing. It's like you have to be brought to your knees to where you're humble enough to completely surrender your weapons, your tools, your shields, your everything, and say, I'd rather die. There's a death component in there that it does, because it is a fight or flight mechanism, and he's using these manipulative drugs to compensate for how poor he feels about himself and the core of the issue. And then it just kind of becomes like a dependency, right? Codependency. Anyway, so it's
do you believe in the 12-step program?
Yes, I love the 12-step. I do not believe in the disease model because I think that's highly enabling. And I don't understand.
I'm ignorant to what you're saying.
The disease model is when you hear, and you're going to hear this because it's what's sold, okay, by rehab. It's sold. It's like a diet, okay, because they're a rescuer, and so the disease model was created in the 80s and 90s thinking that it would help the shame aspect of
it's a disease.
Yeah, it's not your fault. It's genetic. You're predisposed. And so what it does is it takes all the responsibility from the parents, from the child, from everybody, and basically gives that person like, you're diseased. And so that the way that they approach it is through abstinence. And what they found is it's like failed miserably, but yet they still teach it. Because on one aspect, it does help someone go, wow, I am chemically dependent. There is a dependency, so I'm not crazy in that I need this substance. I need the weight loss, right? It's a psychological dependence.
My substance is weight loss.
Yes, your thinness. You're hooked on thinness. It makes you high as a fucking kite, even though your life is destroyed. You're miserable. I listened to our last session. It's just like... Have you listened to that session?
No.
I mean...
I have, but I don't think it's sunk yet.
It's like you're fantasizing about what thinness brought to you and magnifying it, even though your life is a miserable wreck. You're failing miserably, because you're holding on to some illusion of what you think it's going to be. That's the drug. So the dopamine response in the brain. I personally love one of the most groundbreaking scientists and studiers of consciousness and addiction is Dr. David R. Hawkins. I study his work. And yes, he wrote Power versus Force. So the 12-step program, back to that. I love that. I think that, in fact, what we're in essence doing is something similar.
So I could apply myself to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I really love that work. I think that it is very heart-focused. I do believe that there are religious cult following of that in the addiction environment, especially the disease model groups. The disease model would say you're addicted to sugar. It's a genetic propensity.
No, it's not, because nobody else in my family has this.
It doesn't matter if they do or they don't.
Okay.
They're saying it is the genetic propensity. And they don't necessarily look at your shitty ass belief systems, the narcissism engaging here, the supremacy issues, the higher standards than holier than thou, the lack of grace. You can't
go deep into it.
Not necessarily, but the 12-step program does. So when you combine the disease model and the 12-step program, it's kind of like a religious, I'm diseased. It's like, I don't know. The state of mind of someone in survival mode is gripping. It's gripping. I need it, and you understand that feeling. I understand that feeling. Gripping, your freaking knuckles are bleeding and you won't let go. And that's the essence of survival mode, especially around someone who needs my superiority. You end up feeling continuous shame and guilt and failure and inadequacy, and you live in embarrassment. And what do you think your son's doing to feel better? He needs a substance to help him become neutral. You needed a diet. You needed thinness to become neutral. And, the belief pattern. So we can look at it and say, well, of course, I'm not surprised in that a lot of the families that have something like an eating disorder tend to have narcissistic tendencies in their belief patterns. Not everybody, And so that means you're holding on to ideas of supremacy and sometimes overreaching, And so it's the problem with the disease model is no one looks at those things. They don't talk about those things. So you're never really forced to go, well, could it be the religious indoctrination, which is why my son is addicted to porn? No one, Don't ever look at your religious narcissism. So the disease model basically says it's the brain, not the environment. Whereas modern science is like, it's the environment and the perception of it that changes the brain, right? Anyway, so it's amazing. To me, you can understand your son's need because you understand it from your own needs and dependencies. It may not be a substance that gets you high as a kite. It's this thin supremacy, the narcissistic kind of inflation of it that gives you that sensation.
And honestly, the one thing that I have connected to the last few days anyways is the sense of fear of losing control. Like,
that's fear that you can't handle it. So that's the front response to it. Like the first feel, the depth of it goes into, I can't handle this, so I have to control everything. Because what'll happen if I don't control it is what I feel underneath it all, which is the back end of it, which is, I suck. I cannot handle this. This is beyond my power. I will die. It feels like you're going to basically get smushed into sand and blown away. Non-existence is what's underneath all that. So there's been times in my own practice of kind of staying grounded with the vulnerability of my children where I've actually gone into my reaction to their death. I know this sounds terrible, but it keeps me so grounded around the reality that that could happen. I'm not in denial about it. I'm not controlling my kids so much. I give them guidance. I give them grace, but I give them the autonomy. That means independence to figure things out. And in essence, you're teaching your child that you believe they're capable and competent, and it gives them competence. So the problem is when they're hyper controlled, is you're essentially teaching you can't handle reality. That's the downside.
When it comes to my kids, I do have that attitude because I was very controlled.
Yeah.
Like, extremely controlled. To the point where, I mean, my son's been married for a year and a half, and I call once in a while. I never just show up. I don't, my daughter-in-law, I think she's so open with me about this.
He's 29. I mean,
yeah.
When I
was 29, my mom still called me 30 times in a day, and I could be outer, like very guilt tripping and very, to a sick point, like.
Yeah, where you're. Yeah, and you can actually understand where the what it really comes across to her. She's like, that's love, and she probably has some sob victim story where her parents kicked her out early or something.
No, she doesn't. No, that's not true. Because
I know. I'm not saying that's true. I'm just trying to have a conversation. Like, of course we can understand your mom. There's a story behind there that we could go, yes, we understand.
Right.
Okay, that was my point. We could probably understand your mother. We don't need to play wrong, right, wrong. I'm not doing that.
Right. No, I know.
Just get the essence of the conversation here. Get the essence. Okay.
The essence, my point was trying to say is, out of all my siblings, she knows she can get away with it with me. She would never do that to anybody else because she knows I'm the broken one, the weak.
Yeah. Well, that's what she's teaching you by being controlling, is that you can't handle life. You suck. You're incompetent, which is typically when you study substance abuse. There's a feeling of, I am not competent. I'm a failure. And it doesn't have to be from a controlling parent. It can be from a controlling belief system that you might not have. He might be trying to overreach by, I need to make more money. I need to have a better job. I need to have a bigger house. Those people are better than me. I mean, it's always narcissism. It always comes down to having a significant feeling of inferiority relative to a standard that is beyond reality. Kind of like thin supremacy. So you're made to feel horrible about yourself, that massive amounts of shame and disgust, because you're holding yourself to some ideal that is so great. It requires anorexia for you to attain. So you're not questioning the belief system. You think you actually suck. So your son's doing the same thing. It's the same thing. It's called narcissism gone backwards, where you constantly feel shame and you're holding yourself to standards that are so unrealistic, so unnatural to you. He's not questioning that because he probably thinks that's what makes my wife will love me more or whatever. I'm just the essence of this conversation is what you need to understand, not the literally. Typically, that's what it is. So it doesn't have to be making money. It can be something as simple as, I'm dumb. I'm not smart enough. It could be, I am a failure to God. I failed religion. It could be I'm not athletic enough. It could be my penis isn't big enough. It can be I'm not thin enough. It could be I'm not fit enough. Every standard he's holding himself to, he's failing. So when that happens, your fight or flight response. And if you feel inadequate to that, you're going to have chemicals released in your brain that say hide, run, fight. And find a way to feel better because you feel horrible. You recognize you have the same thing.
And I'm doing that with food. I'm doing that with my
kind of because you're well, the thing about food is it's a sign that you feel sorry for yourself. So there's that. Because food is so superficial in terms of its pleasure response. It's not a very deep, especially sugar. It's not very deeply, profoundly. It's like superficially, like it's just an initial, like I just need to do something. So it is a mechanism to cope, but it's also a sign you feel sorry for yourself, which is, again, that's the I can't handle it. There is a sense of poor me. I'm a victim. There's the absolute victim essence to people who go to sugar, right? And
not even sugar.
It doesn't matter what it is. Anything like that. Yeah. It's just, and that is, honestly, you wouldn't go to that if you didn't feel that you needed to control that. So that's why that's so easy for you to go, fuck it, I'm going to go do that because that's the one thing you're trying to manage and control. And that would make sense based on your drug withdrawals from not being thin. Your dieting or controlling of food is like a mechanism for you to try to control your withdrawals from thinness. That's why the diet is such an enabler. It is one of the biggest enablers to this whole thing that you're dealing with, and there's such an epidemic of in modern culture. So they're the ones who are pushing thin supremacy, which is what you believe is your safety. It's what you think will make you feel like I am good enough. And you know what? Sometimes people, let's just say with drugs, some people feel more connected with other people by doing drugs with other people. They feel like they have camaraderie. And that's like smokers. They love to be together. It feels like you're more accepting and more loving and more gracious and more kind in those environments. It's like church. So he might have a group of friends that are doing this with him, that he's feeling like they actually like me. They're not judging me.
Yeah.
So there's an aspect of that. Is it really the drug? Is it really? Or is it this pack that he's actually feeling loved by and feels like, well, we connect. But the only connection that the means to the end there is the drugs. The means to the end in thin supremacy is the diet. What diet are you on? Oh my God, you're paleo, I'm paleo. Oh my God, we're keto together. We're like I believe you're a good person and you connect,
Okay, and like
fitness.
Really, me, I'm such an introvert. Like I don't share with people and I don't go out a lot, or even when I did work out and I was out there, I kept to myself.
And some of that is your survival mode. Your I can't handle it positionality is to remove yourself from anything that makes you uncomfortable. And so by being introverted, you're basically keeping yourself in a safe environment without having to deal with the feelings of inadequacy that arise socially. Awkwardness, or it could be that you just don't want to just stay in your lane. It's like, just get your shit done. Don't talk to anybody because you're there to burn calories and get rid of the feelings of shame. Why would you want to sit and chat when you're trying to get as much shame removed at the gym as possible? There's a lot of backstory around it, right?
Yeah.
And that's all I'm doing is giving a dialogue to it all. It's not just, I'm an introvert. No, let's talk about what that is. Go deep into it,
Right,
and
because reality, before I became so thin obsessed, I wasn't an introvert then.
So now it's not a personality trait for you. It's a symptom relative to your insecurity and your lack of grace with yourself and having to maintain a facade, because it is a facade. It's like playing a role. You know, your son needs to know he should just play himself. Play yourself. You don't need to play this game that society says you have to play as a dad, as a husband. You don't need to be all that. And the hard thing is that in the end, it might be his wife who might have these narcissistic ideals for him. They might have marital problems. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and the way he's compensating, again, you can actually understand and say, well, of course, I would do the same thing. What? You'd be stupid under those states. Yeah, you'd be like brain dead under that circumstance, not to do what makes you feel better.
I am doing the same thing.
You are. Totally. To me, it's like, of course you are. You believe in thin supremacy, so you walk around in shame. I did the same thing, and of course you should do something about it. Doing something about the shame isn't the problem. It's the belief system that you're not looking at that is the problem. That you're not actually questioning or letting go of. You're gripping onto it. You know, and
I think that's where the 12 steps might help.
Absolutely. I love the 12 steps. You just have to be aware when you're in that space that other people might be gripping onto it because they don't feel good about themselves. They're attaching a new codependency to the program.
That becomes the new drug.
It becomes their religion, correct. And you'll see it. You're going to see it. And they'll be very judgmental, too. They're going to have the same kind of...
Well, I might not see it because I'm going to work. He's going to work. I mean, he's going to go away and get help. I want to work the program just myself.
Yeah, the family. You should.
Maybe we can work the steps.
Yeah, we are actually. I mean,
Okay.
I just don't follow a program, you know,
Okay.
but I believe the 12 steps isn't necessarily a program. It's really just a guide for you to surrender your bullshit. Tell yourself the goddamn truth. I mean, all of those are steps.
I surrendered to it. The first step
Kind of. You'll realize when you recover that you haven't surrendered at all. You surrendered at that point. So it's you're still gripping, you're still holding. Your humility is building. I say this after the fact. Keep in mind, it's like I've done this, so I have the position to see it, so that I can go, well, if you think you have but you haven't, you're gonna not tend to that. So I'm not saying no, you haven't. I'm saying this out of like, okay, no, you haven't. You're still gripping, which means you haven't surrendered it. When you accept and willfully from the heart, accept being overweight and gaining weight, that is surrender. When you feel sorry for yourself because you have to gain weight, is that surrendering?
No.
You got it. You haven't done it. Because you still feel sorry for yourself.
Some people are just okay with gaining weight.
Say that again.
Do you think some people are just okay with gaining weight?
But at some point when they surrender, it is yes. The answer is yes. It takes them to surrender to get there. To where they actually change the way they see it. So they let go of the belief systems and they see it differently and they release it. They surrender. It's like saying, I failed. This failed. I don't want it. I can't have it. I don't want it. It's not just I can't have it. It's I don't want it. I would rather go into the infinite space of abyss of nothingness that I don't even know exists than to continue to clutch onto this. I'm willfully surrendering that. It feels like dying. It's going to feel like you're going to die.
When you say it feels like you're going to die, I think of how I feel in my body right now, how I feel. I just feel so different and I feel disgusting.
Okay, that's shame and judgment, and that's not the same.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, that means you're not surrendering. You haven't let it go. That's anti what I'm saying. That's the opposite. Okay, but that does feel, it feels like, poor me. It'll come across in a feel. I'm just using words to express it. You might have different words, but it's going to come across as pitiful, sucky, poor me. I'll just hide under a rock for the rest of my life. Does that sound like surrender? No. Not at all. It's the opposite. It's pride, it's ego, it's inflation.
Surrender is I'll accept myself for what it is.
Yeah, I am willing to allow, and I'm humble enough not to judge it. Because the position of judgment is I know better and it should be better. That's the egoism. That's the narcissism. That's the idea of controlling everything, like you know everything. It's hard to see that when you're in it because you don't think I know everything. You don't think that way. But when you're judging something, you're basically saying it should be better and I'm being withheld from it. So that's a position of ego, right? So when you surrender, you're surrendering that. You're actually giving power over God up. I don't know what's best for me. I don't know. But I do know this. That was hell. I don't want it. And so it flips. There's a flip from God ego to willful servant. I don't even know what's right. I'll do whatever you say. And I'm not going to criticize it. I will accept what it is. And so you actually go from a position of control and clutching and animal brain to a willful servant of grace. It's a switch. And it does flip, like fast. What it takes to do that, because what I'm explaining to you is I'm actually preparing you for what it's going to feel like. Right now you're in the ego clutchingness, feeling sorry for yourself, and that's where the eating actually comes in. And because you judge it, you shame it, you think it's inferior, and that is the belief that you're clutching onto that you have not surrendered. What it's going to feel like to surrender that belief is, well, then I won't know who I am. I won't know how to do things. What'll come up when you get to the point of releasing yourself and surrendering it, what's going to come up is the actual reasons why you're holding on to it, which is, I won't feel good about myself anymore.
Right, that's it.
Yeah, that stuff comes up. So you have to, then if you're really going to let go, you realize, well, should I really feel good about myself doing what I'm doing? So you start to question it. You have to open yourself up to question it all as it comes up and to actually say, is it really as bad as I think it is? Am I really going to feel sorry for myself? Then you question, should I feel sorry for myself if what I'm letting go of is so horrible? If I'm released from this terror and horror and just disgusting.
Okay, can I tell you what I think of when you say that? I think of, was it really so terrible eating clean and eating healthy?
Okay.
I'm looking for a ticket to eat.
You go for it. I think you should try it.
I'm telling you what
I know, and I want you to know you're not even questioning those things, are you?
No, I'm thinking, wow, Angie, you're looking for excuses.
Maybe you should go into that for a while and let me know how that works out in the end. You sounds like you need to be more miserable and lose more of your life. You know how your son needs to probably go through more and more harm? It sounds like you do too. You should go back to that and let us know how it goes. You've been doing it for a long time now. How's it working out? How is it? And that thought comes from how critical and judgmental and shameful you are about the body image. That's where that thought came from. That came from the narcissism. Why aren't you questioning that? What a disgusting
question thing. How dare you even think that? Why would you want that hell?
Well, yeah, you need to. You're not questioning the narcissism ever. It's like you think that is so credible when you actually have.
Okay, how would I question the narcissism? What would go through
because
your mind?
you believe it. You actually believe when you think, because that thought, gosh, was it really that bad to eat clean? That thought came from, you're a piece of shit who looks like fucking hell. You are a shameful loser.
So I need to fight that.
Why aren't you questioning those thoughts? You're not, and I have to say, and I say this with love and care, because I really, really want you to recover. So I'm telling you this so you can hear the feedback. You've never questioned those thoughts. You really think they're credible. Never. I know, and you constantly go in denial when I question them. Denial. So it's like, how are you going to recover? You're so nowhere close to surrendering. Surrender requires you actually question the asshole speaking through you. You think the asshole speaking through you is so credible. So you're not questioning the narcissism. This is where they say narcissism is it is impossible to recover. Well, it's because of this. You think it's so superior. That's you that is holding on to that. You are not questioning the asshole belief system. You keep on just letting it go as if it's running you. Like when you said, I'm addicted to sugar. And I was like, Jesus Christ, she's not questioning the asshole who would say something so tiny after you've experienced this broadening impact, right? We're broadening you. You can tell the difference between someone who says you're addicted to sugar and what we've been doing. There's a big difference, isn't there? Like, big difference. Which one do you really think is going to make an impact in your life? Sugar abstinence? You want to go there?
No.
Why? Just think about the impact. You go deep into it. Where's that going to go? A new religion, basically. You get to just sit there and demonize sugar for the rest of your life and feel like shit about sugar, and all you think about is sugar the rest of your life. How's that going to work? It's so myopically dumb. You never question that, even though you live in this big area of expansiveness.
Yeah.
So I really want you to listen to our last session, because you're going to hear how tiny and small your thoughts are in the beginning, and how myopic, and how through the straw, and I can't handle it, and the gene size. And then by the end of that session, how much bigger your thinking is. Like, oh my God, yes, like you're getting bigger. But you know why it gets small again? Because you're not questioning. When these thoughts come through, you literally believe they're true. You're not questioning them at all. You really believe they're true. That you should go clean eating. How's that going to end for you?
So when these thoughts come into my mind, I have to talk back to my mind.
You need to go, hold on, why would I even think that? Is it true? Is it really true? Why would I? So notice how quickly, and clearly I've practiced, and this is why I'm here for you, because I have this here, right here and now. That thought about was clean eating so bad came from you're a piece of shit, you fat lard.
Yeah.
I know. You never questioned that one. You never questioned that. You actually thought it was credible to go back to clean eating.
Well, I know I'm a piece of shit.
I don't, exactly. What would bring you to that? You're not questioning that.
I was out with my girlfriend the other day because we went out for coffee through everything going on. She called me up and we met, and I left her, and she's, heavier set and whatever. And I looked at her, and I always looked at her like she's beautiful. Like she's just a beautiful person, inside and out. Like, and I remember leaving there, and I thought, I looked at her, and I just thought, why is she okay in her own skin? And I never looked at her like, oh, she should be thinner, or she's not good enough. I actually look up to her.
Well, yeah, it's not her that is the narcissist drawing cocaine basically high from thin supremacy. You are. That's why. And again, the narcissism is not black and white. Yours is really, if I were to say, okay, if there was a way to describe this, the way your narcissism is manifesting is in your belief system. It's not in your mind or relative to others. Okay, so you're not looking at others and saying, she's inferior, shame, she shouldn't even be out here. Now, I do have some anorexics who are that way.
Well, see, I'm looking at her like, I'm looking at her like, can you rub off on me? I want to
Okay, so your narcissism is in relation to you and the body. You're the asshole to your body. You're the dick to your body.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm my problem.
Correct. You are to yourself. It's like the person who holds themselves hostage. They would never hold someone else hostage.
I looked at her, and I bet you she's 200 pounds, and I would have switched shoes with her. Like, I would like to be her.
Yeah, well, why can't you let this body have that grace?
Just because she glows. I love her attitude.
So why can't you give this body that grace? Why does her body deserve grace, but the body you're in that has been sustaining you through all this abusiveness, why does it get to be hated?
I think I'm judged on my body.
Well, you judge on your body. That's you projecting that out. Yes, you're the judger. That's why you think everybody else is, because that's your belief set. So you assume I'm being judged that way, because I judge people that way.
People now, and I walk by with like shame, like with my head down.
Yeah, that's because you're the asshole shaming yourself. You're shaming yourself. You're the asshole. And I want to rephrase that because it's actually your belief system you hold on to because you claim yourself a thin supremacist in the back of your mind. That's why you have these problems, because you believe in thin supremacy and you're holding yourself to it. So you therefore get to have shame. That's why I say karma's a bitch. That's why you get this. Karma has consequences one way or the other. And here you go. Diminishing, smaller, tiny. That's just, you're so limited. Juvenile. I mean, the whole thing is so...
What is that? Karma is when you do bad, you get bad.
And when you do good, it manifests. It's all, everything has a equal opposite reaction to it. So when you're this way, you get to suffer. And it's the teacher. It's a teacher. So to me, karma isn't something to be afraid of. It's something to actually welcome. I want to know, because if you're unaware, sometimes what it requires is destruction to become aware. The more pride you have and the more arrogance you have, the worse things are going to get before you let go. So you remember when the doctor was like, sometimes they have to lose their life, they have to lose their job, they have to lose their wife. That's how much pride that person has before they're willing to let it go. Yeah. The pride. When you say, is it really that bad? Is it really that bad? You're negotiating for your goddamn thin supremacy drug in that moment. Never questioning why you feel so ashamed over something so dumb. You just are ashamed of it because you believe your thin supremacy beliefs. Your narcotic is your thin supremacy. You think it makes you...
That's what gets me high.
Yeah. And it's high on yourself. Self-righteousness. That's what it is. It's narcissism. So the belief system, okay? So I wish I had a dry erase board right here and I could just be like, here's what's going on. You're holding on to a narcissistic douchebaggery of a system. Therefore, you are a narcissistic douchebag. Because you believe it, you sustain it, you act it, you hold yourself to it. And guess what happens to your whole soul? It gets raped. It gets beat up. It gets shamed. Because that belief system is that way. All the while, you know in your heart you're a good person. You can feel the difference, right? But what's more important to you, the heart or the narcissistic douchebaggery that you're making superior? Clearly, it's not the heart that you're using to survive. So you'd have to surrender your survival. And that's why I said it feels like you're going to die, because you're literally attaching your survival to the narcissistic douchebaggery of thin supremacy. Is that helping you see it? In our last session, you were like, it's in my mind. I'm like, no, it's in the belief system that you're holding in mind. So yes, it's in your mind, but it's not your mind that's holding you to it. It's the belief system that you give credibility.
I've changed my belief system.
You think that belief system is credible. It is valuable. You actually give it value. You have pride in it. And that's where your suffering is born. Because if you did not believe it, if you aligned that belief system with narcissism, with abusiveness, with shallowness, with shame, with judgmentalism, with all of that, would you hold yourself to it? No, because it's so bad. You would never believe it again. You wouldn't recommend it again. You would.
But then that would entail me liking myself.
Well, it would require that you believe whatever you are is good enough, even if it sucks, even if it's flawed, even if it's weak, even if it's incapable. You have to see that that is more worthy than that system, because you're internally not an asshole. You're not. You're a kind person. You're loving. That's the real part. That's real. Why can't that have a voice? Why is that not good enough? Why is that can't handle? You know, you go to your weapons of narcissism and you end up getting hurt. You know, those weapons say, you suck, you're not good enough, you shouldn't be doing this, you're doing it wrong. That's all you hear in the back of your head. You know what I mean? So you have to really look at those belief systems and ask, should I truthfully, in my heart, do I believe this is worthy of shame? Should anybody be shamed for something like this? Especially under the context of why you're freeing yourself. Keep that into the mix too.
What do you mean by that?
You are letting yourself free from a horrible mental illness. And you know what? Part of that is giving yourself the grace to eat. Is this really worthy of shame when someone has been held to such horrendous, inhumane standards of abuse? Should they not be allowed to just be human and gain weight? Keep that in the context of this.
But when you say it like that, it's like, are you saying I deserve a ticket to just go eat and gain weight because?
Yes, I am saying that. And why is that wrong? That asshole in you I was just hearing, that's the asshole. I just heard that from the asshole that came out. Are you saying that I get a free ticket to go eat when I want to get fat? Yes. Why is that bad? If you have not you need to listen. Shh, you need to listen to me. I don't want to talk to the asshole. Get that fucking bitch out of here. I don't want to talk to her anymore. I'm done. I don't want to work with her anymore. I'm done. Tell her to shut the fuck up. I'm so done. You might want to listen to yourself. Are you saying that you should starve yourself? Because that is what you're arguing for right now. Do you know what I'm saying? Give yourself freedom to figure it out. Is that telling you to go binge?
No.
Yeah, well, the asshole certainly thinks so. The dick thinks so. The piece of shit in there that is such a fucking loser holding you hostage thinks so.
Right, because I think that's like saying, oh, feel sorry for yourself.
Yeah, no, that's your asshole. I don't want to work with her anymore. She's not my client. I'm so fucking done with her. I have no more patience with that crap.
Yes.
If you want to bring her forward, this is our last session. I cannot do this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm done negotiating with a dick. Don't bring her into our conversations. Okay. I'm so mad right now. I'm like getting angry. This is why anorexia is so difficult to work with. Because you think that's credible. That was just shit coming out of your face. And you're not questioning it.
I should take pride in that and think, yes, I do deserve it.
Why do you even have to negotiate for it? Are you fucking kidding me? The fact that you're sitting here having to make excuses is why you're overeating. Never once did I say you should eat so much that you're sick. You're entitled to that. Fuck no, you're not. You shouldn't have to excuse eating like a normal human being.
Right. I agree there.
Well, you don't, because you're excusing it for yourself, which means you actually believe you shouldn't be eating it. You're listening to this belief system, and you actually think that it's credible.
Well, no, because I look around sometimes and I look at other people and I think, I deserve to be.
You just went into denial. You just went into denial again. The truth of the matter is, you actually believe that shit. That's the truth. That's why it's running you. Those moments where you give it grace, that's not real. What's real is what you're doing with the asshole in mind. That's what's running the show. Not the kindness that you want to have. That's not running the show. Like I said, your heart is good, but that has no power in any of it. So stop using your heart to define what you need to see is what's actually running and guiding everything I'm doing is that belief system that is so narcissistically sucky that I actually believe when I give myself grace that I'm entitling a nasty, lazy, you're criticizing normalcy. That's narcissism. That's the narcissism coming back out again. You've got to start questioning that. I cannot continue to do this if you don't.
Okay.
It's just.
But when I say to you that I look at other people and I think I do deserve that.
Yeah, that's not working. You're not actually implementing that.
I know, but I know that I do deserve it.
Yeah, but that doesn't, it's not.
Or I want it.
But that's not, what's actually running the show is the shame about it. That's the truth. Your heart isn't actually given power. You're being run by this horrible belief system that you literally believe in. That's why you're not catching it. That's why you keep on bringing these things up as if it's a legitimate point. It's like, oh my God, everything you're saying stems from shame. You're ashamed about that food. So therefore you're going to make it into something. Should I be eating this without, because don't I need to have some control? Well, what are you talking about? Control over your shame about it. If you didn't feel bad about it, would you need someone to control you?
Yeah.
No, because you wouldn't have all of this mental dogma going around in your mind in the background while you eat it. It wouldn't even exist. But all of that, all this bullshit you're spewing that comes from the belief system, that's why you're overeating.
And you know why I think too? I think because instead of being positive with myself, I'm beating myself up. So I'm not even enjoying my life and my hobbies and doing things that I want to do. I'm too busy. All my time is focused on telling myself I'm shaming myself. So it's like I'm stuck. I feel like I'm like a bathtub drain, like the water's going around and around. I'm just going in circles.
How are you going to change that? What has to change for you to stop?
I need to snap out of this mindset.
Where did that mindset come from? And how do you just snap out of something you literally believe?
I have to talk back to it. I have to start when my mind gets there. I have to say that.
Well, it wouldn't be no. That's actually not how it works.
Okay.
I'm going to give you some guidance here. You have to question why you would even believe that shit, because it wouldn't even come to your mind if you didn't believe it. If you did not believe the belief system, how does one come to negative judgment?
By believing in it.
Believing what?
Whatever they're judging.
Well, it's very simple. Think of it as a mathematical equation. What equals negative judgment?
Negative plus negative.
Well, there has to be an ideal that you believe is positive added to reality, of which is different. So you have to have an ideal in your mind that you judge reality by. The difference creates a negative outcome.
I have to get rid of the ideal system in my head.
Yes, you do. That's the narcissism.
To get rid of the ideal system.
The only reason why it's there is because you think it exists And it's true.
And how do I get that ideal system?
Ouch.
I have to just believe.
You have to, question. You have to question it.
I have to question it.
If it is true, that's the first thing I would do. Are thinner people truly superior people?
No. Well, everybody knows that.
Yeah, well, clearly you don't.
Right, I don't know it in myself.
Yeah, you really think thinner people are superior. Just like white supremacists truly believe in their heart and their core and their soul that white people are superior.
Yeah.
Yeah, you believe it. You actually believe that shit. Remember when our last session, how I was...
I have to question my ideal system.
Yeah, you do. You need to question it, and you need to be very discriminative, and you need to ask, is that really something I want to hold myself to? Because if I do, this is what I get. The way I think about myself right now is what you would expect from someone who believes that. Because my body is failing me right now. Because I believe that shit. Because I believe it, it's failing me. Because I want something different than this. Well, you're the one that wants to be thin. So you must believe the thin mirage of awesomeness. You believe it. You've internalized it as a truth. People,
and until I change that, until I get that shit out of my head,
you're gonna always have to question. So remember when you were like, well, when it comes up, I'll just have to lean. I'm like, no, it only comes up if you believe it. So you're gonna have to constantly have talk back to yourself when it comes up. I have to always I feel shitty about myself and I have to question it. They're not question. I have to say, no, that's not true. So you're constantly battling your belief systems. Well, why can't you just get rid of that belief system? Thinner people who truly think their shit doesn't stink, they're miserable people. And not only that, but they're not even connecting to themselves. They're surviving in an inflated state of mind with some idea that isn't even true. It's like fake. It's just fakeness. And they're attaching to it as if it makes them superior. It's sad. They don't even know themselves. They're just presenting a fake persona. It's like
so the day that you let go of the ideal that you had in your head.
Yep, which was extremely strict.
Pardon?
Which was extremely strict, perfectionistic. I had fitness standards. I had physique standards. I had religious standards. I had everything. Yes.
Okay. So then you just said, fuck it, my belief system's so messed up.
It was horrible. Nobody, I remember this thought, nobody should have to do all of that just to feel secure. That is wrong.
I agree.
It is what I felt it in my heart with myself. I was like, the worst thing I've ever done is hold myself to that, because that beautiful child in my heart that was sweet and kind and real got shamed. I shamed myself. I held myself to religious dogma. It's called dogma, by the way. You can call it brainwashing or dogma. Basically, dogma is a truth or set of truths given to you by an authority, and they are not to be questioned. So you're told it's true. Correct. You've never questioned that shit. You just spew it out like it's real and true.
I need to question the dogma.
And you need to question if you should be held to it.
Amen.
Yeah. You've never questioned it. You always just thought it was so true and it's so righteous and I just feel so bad and I have to be fat and I'm a terrible fucking person. I'm never going to go out in public. Well, that's because you believe you are worthy of shame. Well, where did that worthy of shame come from? Well, you have to have a standard you're grading yourself by. You have to have, this is what you should be, and then your reality has to be compared to it, and then you have to go, you suck. Is this standard? What should be shamed here? If anything's going to be shamed.
what I think in my mind.
This douchebag of a belief system should be like, no.
No, I need to say, who does she think she is?
Yeah. What is that religious ideology, if you want to call it that, about thin people? Honestly, it is dangerous to the health of the person you're with. It completely clouds their sense of self-worth. It hijacks it. And then you're left a slave to these horrible, horrible ways of being that are unnatural. They're unnatural to human nature. And then you're left with these impulses to binge or to overeat because you're being so shamed for eating because of that system.
Fucks me up.
Yeah, and then you say, I'm the one that sucks. I suck. Not that system.
No, it's how I'm thinking that sucks.
Yeah, how would you feel? Do you really believe? Go into yourself here. Do you really believe what you have done is worthy of shame? Even holding on to thin supremacy.
Do I really believe what I've done is worthy of shame? No.
Even holding on to thin supremacy. Is that worthy of shame?
No.
I would agree, because you truly believed it was going to make you feel better. This is like saying, should your son be ashamed he's taking narcotics? No, because he feels that shitty about himself.
Because he doesn't want to see people. He puts his head down now.
Yeah, he's like his mama.
Yeah.
Yeah, he needs to give himself grace and compassion for that as well. So when you forgive the reason why you're holding on to narcissism, it's like so much easier to let go too, because you're like, oh, I only was attracted to something so extreme because I felt so small about myself. I criticized my heart.
It was like the only thing I felt like I had going for me.
Correct. And so it's like, because you feel so small about who you really are. So what are you going to really need to do when it comes to this? It's not even just questioning the dogma. It's questioning, is why you've been attracted to that really true? Are you really, really inferior?
No, but I thought I was.
Well, of course. But is it true? And if you aren't, and go into your truth, your heart, just the stuff that's been there since the day you were born, just the essence of your being, the childness in there. Is that really bad? Is that flawed? Is that not good enough? Is it inferior? Because if it is to you, you're never going to recover. It can be to someone else, right? But how do they know? They're not inside the soul that is experiencing. They're not witnessing your witnessing experience. So how would anybody outside of yourself know if what's within your heart is inferior or not? Needs to be fixed, needs to be improved on. Who else can know that? Can your mom? Nope. Oh, you're the only one. You're the only one that has not validated that. Why haven't you validated your own heart yet? Is it really flawed? Is it really? Go into yourself and tell yourself the truth about it. Is it really inferior? Is that not good enough? When it comes to making decisions, is your heart so bad that you can't use it?
No.
Okay, because that's the feel that would drive you to go, well, I can't use my own heart. I have to use alternatives. I have to use other systems, other beliefs. Because I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm weak and incapable, and I can't handle it. Well, really, can your heart not handle it? When you get down to it? Which is worse? Relying on some external belief system that constantly shames and sets you up to have to perform higher than you really need to? Or just the foundation of your heart that is so humble and so, if you want to think it's inferior, which one is truly worse?
The belief system I have is worse.
Yeah, and all of the slavery to it, right? It's like so much worse. It requires, it's ungodly. It's just ridiculous. No one should have to work this hard just to feel adequate about their heart. Why can't you just feel good about your heart alone as it is? And then live your life from there. Whether it's perfect or not doesn't even matter at that point, you know? So if your heart is good enough, do you really need a body to compensate for it? Meaning, do you really need a thinner body to feel better about yourself? Is your heart really that bad that you have to compensate that hard with thin supremacy?
No.
Because you know the belief that you suck right now is a belief that you are such a piece of shit failure. And what have you failed? Thin supremacy?
Yeah,
you feel, you did. It's okay to say I did fail. You failed thin supremacy.
Yeah, I gave up. I can't do it.
So is that really something you should be ashamed about?
No, but I have to just say I failed. I have to just say I can't do it anymore, and I sucked at it, and I don't want it.
Well, did you really suck at it, or did you freaking?
No, I was great
at it. And it was not worth it. And it was not worth it.
Right.
So, to thin supremacy, you're a failure. You are a piece of shit failure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not truly who I am.
No, and to that belief system, you should be isolating yourself. You should be eating clean right now. To that belief system. You should be doing something about it. To that belief system, you're out of control and need control. To that belief system, you are a total failure and you should be ashamed of yourself. Do you really believe that? Think about what you've not only dedicated your identity to that system, your whole identity was backed into that shit. You did it wholeheartedly. You did everything above and beyond. And was it really that amazing? Is it really worthy of that much praise when you get thin? Wouldn't you rather?
It's a shit but me.
It was horrible. It's horrible. So anybody who's in that system doing all of that shit, are they really happy?
I don't even care if they're happy or not.
But is it true? What was your experience of it? If it requires that much work, effort.
You're not living.
Thank you. So let's just tell the truth. If it requires that much obsessiveness and complete isolation, are you really happy?
No.
Is it even?
You're living for that.
You're lying. You're basically lying to everybody, pretending that your life is better, when in fact, if it was really good, you wouldn't have to work that hard. It would be natural. It would be such a natural, gracious thing. But you're being taught to be unnatural, to be completely isolated as a human. You're being taught to be obsessed with food, completely shameful around it. And how is that something you should be actually promoting in yourself to the point where you're willfully being shamed within yourself right now? That belief system you might want to question. Is it really something you want to hold yourself to? And is it something we should be sustaining and promoting by holding ourselves to it? Because by holding yourself to it, you are promoting it. You are sustaining it. You are saying this is how everybody should live. Even if you're not telling other people to do it, you're doing it, which is promoting it.
Right.
Yeah. You're a thin supremacist. You're like a racist.
You're right.
And no wonder you feel like shit. You see where I'm like, well, that's karma. When you hold on to shit, you smell like it.
Yes.
Yeah. You might want to question if you, within yourself, is this really worthy of shame? Shame is a big emotion that is actual poison to your brain. It takes all of those chemicals and pushes them down and releases a death hormone. Why do you think you're obsessed with wanting to be thin? Why do you think your son is taking drugs?
We feel a certain way about ourselves.
You're ashamed. You feel ashamed. You feel like a piece of shit loser. And how do you come to that? You have to hold yourself to some ideal standard that reality isn't matching. So your reality is made to be seen as horribly sucky. But which one in truth sucks?
The standard.
Yeah. Especially if the standard requires obsessive compulsiveness to control. And
Hands down.
Yeah. So, do you really want to be a thin supremacist?
No.
So
I have to question it.
what happens if you're released from that? You never again have to hold yourself to that bullshit. You never again have to hold the body that you've been given to those standards. You know what that gives your body?
Freedom.
To be what it is. What's the truth? This comes back to our earliest sessions. What is the truth of the body if you stop doing this to it?
I don't think I understood it then.
Well, you did, but then you didn't, and then you did, but then you didn't. You know, but you're right. The depth of understanding at this point is like, well, of course, if you're not willing, when you leave that cult and you say, I'm done, I would rather be fat. And of course you can shame me, but I would rather shame what I was doing in that because it is so bad that I'm okay being judged. If someone's going to judge me, they clearly don't understand how bad that religion of thin supremacy is. So they'll figure it out at some point, right?
Thank you.
You need to question the dogma and then release yourself from having to, you need to release yourself from it. And the way I did it is I actually said, well, how fat am I personally willing to be? Because if I let this religion go, if I let my dieting supremacy go, my fitness supremacy go, the body's going to be what it's going to be. And I have to be okay with it. So at what point am I not okay with it? Because if I become not okay with it, that means I have to go back into that religious doctrine.
So the answer is at any point.
I went up to 500 pounds. I was like, well, what would be, so I knew that my life was completely paralyzed by this narcissism of thin supremacy. It's completely hollow. I had nothing, no reality, no soul. It was all just body, right? And shame and food and shame and food and shame and food. You know, it was just, that was it. I'd rather die. I'd rather commit suicide, and I totally understand why people do. So I remember thinking, well, so I was paralyzed by this perfect body and what it took to keep it. Paralyzed, completely paralysis. There was no life. And you understand that because you were paralyzed by it too. So what is an equal opposite physical paralysis? Well, 500 pounds. At that point, I'll think about suicide again, or we'll find out. But I realized too, in a physical body that is paralyzed, I still have the freedom of my mind and soul, so it would still be better. It is not worthy of shame. It is not. I felt that it shook my soul to its core. It literally turned on the lights. Ping! It was like, holy shit. I would rather be 500 pounds. I'd rather be a paraplegic. I'd rather have, no eyesight. I'd rather be blind. The physical body has nothing to do with freedom. I do not care about what anybody believes about the body that I'm attached to. It's not their body. Why are they infringing upon my body with their beliefs about it? It's not their body.
That's so true.
Yeah, so I'm letting someone invade into my soul space with their claims on my body? That's someone I don't want to tolerate.
That's so true.
Yeah, and that was a moment I was like, bam, no, you cannot tell me what I should and shouldn't do with my body. It's not your goddamn body. It's the one I'm existing in. It's the one giving me consciousness. Why am I not defending my own body?
So true.
So for the first time in that moment, I felt so much love for the body unconditionally. It was like, it can be fat, it can be ugly, it can be one-legged, it can I honor this consciousness that this body is giving to me unconditionally, spontaneously, just giving me everything to be here. Why am I shaming it? Well, because someone told me that would suck if it wasn't thin enough for them to fuck.
So true.
You know? And I'm like, I am done. I'm done with shaming the body. I'm done with religious indoctrination shaming the body. I'm done with, I would rather be the fattest whore on the planet.
That's so true. Everything you're saying right now. How fast can you get this session to me? No, I'm serious right now.
However long it takes to upload, but you need to question. I can't wait for you to go back and listen and see my face get red with anger.
Okay.
I like when it came to that narcissism, I lost my temper. Let me rephrase that. I lost my patience with it.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Well, I apologize because I shouldn't lose my patience, but man.
You need, I like that. No.
I was literally about to say, we're done. Sorry, I can't work with you.
No, that's because you have a passion and you care. That's the only way to get better. But I need to go right now.
Yep.
I need to think about
the love.
The questioning why I'm thinking the way I am.
Yeah.
I need to.
If you want to, if this is a belief you want to hold yourself to, because you have a choice right now. Because if you don't want to hold yourself to it, how is that going to change things? What's going to happen?
I'm going to be in the same position I'm in.
If you let go of it to where you never again have to hold yourself to that belief system.
Freedom.
Tell me how that feels.
Freedom.
Tell me how it feels. You feel it here? Do you feel it here? 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 It should feel like this, like is your hair coming up? It should feel like your hair just rose. It should feel like, I never again have to feel bad or care about food.
Fresh air.
It should feel like your life just opened up to an infinite space. When that happens, you'll know it. You might not have felt that at that moment, but let me tell you, it's going to become massive for you to go, I am set free from that identity of thin supremacy. I will never be in that religion again. I will never support it again. I will never hold myself to it.
And I will never go back into that hell.
Ever. You will why would you choose it? Right? Why would you choose that if you're given the opportunity to exit permanently from your identity, from your life? You will never again have to worry about the body and what it looks like for the rest of this life that it is providing you. Tell me how that feels.
I'll tell you when I get there.
Cool. Okay, I'm going to upload this.
Thank you. Thanks, Robin.
We need to schedule.
Yeah.